Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer at Geek Vibes Nation. I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for geekvibesnation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Attic new release roundup. If you're new here, first of all, welcome. What we do here is we go back and forth talking about the latest home video releases. And, we cover small indie stuff to pretty big releases and kind of everything in between. But before we get started, it's been a little while since we've done a giveaway, and this is a big one. Thanks to Warner Brothers, we are giving away not just the digital code for this, the entire shebang, Training Day 4K, sealed, slip covered, the whole
Nice.
enchilada. So winning this is really easy. You just want to comment in the video below and let us know which title we talked about that you were most excited for. And it's just that easy. I also will note that you have to be in the US to be eligible. So because just I'm going to be shipping this. So
Question: Can I win this? Because I want the.
Probably not, but but anyways, yeah, that's really exciting. Thank you again to Warner Brothers for sending me this extra copy. I'm going to be actually reviewing my copy of it, so y'all can hear about how awesome this movie is and how great it looks. But you could win your very own. Again, just comment below which title we talked about that you like the most, and again, please be within the US. So we will also link in the description when the deadline is and all that good information. So with that, I think I'm going to dive into my first title. This one I was pretty excited for because I am a big Steve McQueen fan, and this was kind of notorious for two different reasons. One, it's supposed to be his worst film, which I don't think so, but we'll get into that. And the other one is, sadly, this was his last film. So this is from Kino Studio Classics. Again, we have some really nice packaging from them. Here's the back. We do have some extras. The commentary track is highly recommended. Steve Mitchell's great. And Nathaniel Thompson, they do a really good job together always. So here we have some alternate cover art. Here's the back, and we also do have a reversible slip, so that's pretty cool.
Nice. Several different options.
Yeah, actually 3 different options for your cover, so that's nice. So I will say this isn't a good movie. Is it his worst movie? I don't know. I will say I certainly understand why it's not liked. Yeah, there's a lot of issues here. The pacing is really cumbersome. I think the biggest thing is it has weird tonal shifts. And I think generally the movie's very aimless. It doesn't really quite know exactly what it wants to be. It's just throwing a lot at the audience. And I think the end result is it doesn't feel very focused. Still, I found it watchable. Like, I was entertained. Steve McQueen, I think, is a big part of that. Even though like he was going through a lot when he filmed this, he still brings like his A game. He brings a lot of charm to the film. And I do think that this movie crosses that golden kind of line of so bad it's enjoyable. It's such a sour note to think about this being his final film. and it's certainly not like the levels of like Bullet, but still, I think it's fun. It's not, again, it's not a good movie, but I didn't think it was the worst movie. And I think if you're a completist, Steve McQueen completist, you're going to want to own this. It does look really great. As like from the back, you can see it's a new 4K scan. This is a very like vivid, colorful movie. So I think like the 4K upgrade looks really nice. There's a lot of outdoor locations that I think really pop with this new 4K scan. Sounds really good. There's only like a little bit of slight issues with like maybe some like it doesn't look pristine, but it looks pretty good. I mean, especially for a movie from, I think this was 1980. Yeah. So yeah, overall, I don't know if this has ever like been out in the US, but this is definitely a new 4K scan. And again, the commentary track I thought was really fun. So yeah, I really liked it. I think that if you're kind of put off by it being like considered a really bad film, I would say just give it a chance. So
Yeah, that one I actually started watching last night, I believe. I have like 30 minutes left to go on it. So it's only an hour and a half movie. So I'm about an hour into it, but I'm having fun with it so far. I think
yeah,
I can understand the tonal inconsistencies and everything. But until you told me that people didn't like it just now, I was just like, no, this is a solid Steve McQueen
yeah.
movie, in my opinion.
I mean, wasn't it jarring to see LeVar Burton?
Yeah, but I mean, he was good in what he was doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it was fun to see him.
Not jarring in a bad way, just like I wasn't like I didn't look up the cast, so I was like, wow,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
LeVar Burton.
yeah.
So yeah, I just wished it was a little more focused. I don't know if you get this vibe already, but it's very like all over the place.
Yeah, because like like one of my favorite scenes so far is that wild cornfield chase.
Mm.
Like them driving through the cornfield with those crazy brothers throwing dynamite.
Oh yeah.
That it's kind of like zany, almost Looney Tunes esque stuff. But then like the next scene is like his girlfriend, like who's a teacher, being like intimidated by this crazy maniac. So it's just kind of like really like almost like I said, Looney Tunes stuff juxtaposed with like a really like intense, like, oh, this woman might like life and death stakes. That I can understand that, but for what it is so far, I enjoyed. I'll see how the last 30 minutes goes down for me, but so far, if you're a McQueen fan, like you said, I think it's at least worth rounding out your collection, because it's not. I don't think it's a travesty by any means. So
no, it's a very watchable, I would say even fun movie. It's just it does have. I understand where people are coming from with that don't connect with it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Going on to another more inconsistent movie, unfortunately, starting mine off. This is a new one from Lionsgate. It is the new one from Nicolas Cage, and that is The Old Way, which I love Nicolas Cage. He can do some really great stuff. He can do some really awful stuff. It's just like depending on the day. And I wouldn't say this is awful. It's just not great. So just standard slipcover lines, and there will be a digital code in here. Mine is not in there right now. So the main thing is like, I'm not sure if it was the direction that Cage was given or just a choice that he decided, but probably more likely a choice he decided, because that's like, we've seen crazy Nick Cage performances where he just decides to do stuff. There are some acting choices in this from him that are just very like off-putting. Like this tale is like Nick, he plays like an old like vicious old west badass who's like was constantly like getting into like trouble, and like it's just basically notorious for being like a killer. And this was like back in like the old west, before like the laws of United States were like established, like statehood was established. So one of the first scenes you see is like a man being like tried for a crime, and he ends up Nick Cage ends up like killing this man. Like there's like an escape that almost happens, and he ends up killing this man right in front of his son, which is important because this ends up, spoiler alert, this is a revenge tale of that boy coming to take revenge on Nick Cage's character, who we meet 20 years in the future. He's kind of settled down with his own family, but he's like repressing that kind of like old side of him. He's been made a better man by his wife. He has a young daughter, all that stuff. So he's like reformed himself until one day tragedy strikes, and then he is like kind of like has to tap back into the kind of that old killer instinct. But now the United States is more established, and he can't kind of indulge in those killer tendencies like he used to. So it's kind of like he's like an emotionless killer, but he's like so emotionless that it's kind of hard to relate. Like he doesn't even have like small moments of emotion with his daughter, really, who is you kind of see her and she kind of seems like a normal girl, but then you kind of understand that she also kind of has like she doesn't feel anything like any like solid emotions, and she kind of has like, you can see kind of the beginnings of that killer instinct within her. It's kind of hard to articulate, but it's basically he's playing like a very flat character throughout the entire movie, and he does like, it is nice to see him bond with his daughter, but it is more pretty much always for a purpose of like getting revenge instead of like genuine heart to heart, because neither of them really have deep emotions. So it's very tonally like hard to like balance. There's interesting things within this narrative. It is just like a standard like revenge narrative, like you kill one of mine, I try to come back and like get vengeance for them, that type of stuff. The best part of this is the dynamics between Nicolas Cage and the girl who plays his daughter, who was the young girl in the new Firestarter remake, which wasn't a great movie, but I think she did a fine job, and she does a good job here. I think she does a better job than Cage as being like a consistent character, in my opinion. There's some good character actors in this one. Nick Searcy, from who people might know from Justified, he's really good in this. But overall, this just kind of never really comes together in like a completely satisfying way. There's things I like about it, but it's just like not. It's the characters are so cold that it just never gave me something to like latch on to. And also it's not all on Cage. I think a lot of the directorial choices are kind of odd. I really have a problem with the score that they use for this, which is interesting because they make a very big emphasis on the score within the special features. There's a whole audio commentary track with the composer, and then there's also another featurette about the score. And I'm like, I did not like the score at all because it seems like doesn't seem consistent with the movie. It seems like way more like soaring and bombastic than the story needs. It doesn't really like suit kind of like the more sober old west aesthetic. It was just kind of like took me out of it. I'm very easy on scores. I don't really judge it very much, but this kind of I was just like, what is going on with the score? But and then there's also kind of minor nitpicks here and there. So I think there's just kind of like very like little flaws that kind of like added up to kind of make a kind of unsatisfying movie. But if you're a Nick Cage fan, it's not like a horrible watch, but it's just kind of like, it's not the best. It's kind of like he's been on a run in recent years where he's like kind of built back more goodwill with like Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent and Mandy and like roles like that where you like, it's like Nick Cage how you want him to be. This is kind of more so sliding back into like the direct to video fodder, but like a little step above that. So overall, passable maybe, but like not worth going out of your way unless it just really interests you. Like I said, this has the commentary track with the composer. It also has a second commentary track with the director. The like we are always saying like you rarely see an audio commentary track for new movies these days. This has two, which is wild. Like I was not expecting that from this movie. It also has a couple other featurettes just about the making of it. The audio visual quality is really solid. But unless you're just like a Nick Cage fanatic, I would recommend probably like finding some way to stream it or something like before buying it because it's inconsistent.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't know that movie existed until the Blu-ray came out. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I will probably watch it just for Nick Cage. So, so my next one is an action film. Again, this was something that I had never heard of until I got this to review. But it's an interesting one. All pretty much just for the cast, but it's not a bad movie. Attack Force Z, with a very young Mel Gibson and Sam Neill. I guess that's his character there. But here's the back. And yeah, like it's okay. So it's definitely one of these men on a mission kind of movies. Attack Force Z follows a group of Australian commandos who launch a secret mission against Japanese forces in the Second World War. So, yeah, this movie was entertaining enough, but kind of like you were talking about with your last movie, I think it is a little bit inconsistent. Like there's some really good action, but then it's kind of I I appreciate the fact that this movie tries to sort of anchor some of the more like actiony and maybe brutal parts with some emotional stakes. But the problem is when I'm watching something like this, I kind of don't need that. I kind of just want fun, bombastic action. Again, it's something that I do like. I appreciate them adding some layers to it, but it's like I don't know. This is I'm more of like give me like canon era like crazy action movies. Missing in Action I think is I don't know if it's the best one, but I mean it's the one that kind of comes to mind because I reviewed all of those pretty recently. But yeah, it was fun. It was interesting seeing like Mel Gibson at a very young age. This was from 1980. I think this might even have been before Road Warrior. Sam Neill, of course. It's funny because we just talked about Possession with him in it. I think that even predates that. So that's kind of entertaining. There is some like it's not gory if you're wanting something that's a little bit more like hard R. There's like some torture scenes, but it's not like very explicit. So, it's pretty standard. I think, like I said, it's fun. I think that Severin did a really good job with restoring this film. Again, you know, they always kind of do a really good job of taking older films and I mean especially like older films that are obscure and maybe don't have the best like original material to work with. This looked really good. I mean, as you can see, there's a lot of like outdoor scenes that really pop. Colors look really nice. It's not pristine. There are some like artifacts, a little bit of scratching, but honestly, nothing that was distracting at all. We do have a really nice series of interviews, and I was gonna check because sometimes they have like little extra things with it, but no, not in this case. But um, yeah, it's a fun release. The movie's fine. It's certainly not one of my favorite sort of like commando-y sort of movies, but it gets the job done. I kind of like The Hunter. I wasn't bored, and that's the main thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I believe I read somewhere that maybe that was Gibson's feature debut.
Oh, okay.
So I would probably more so for Sam Neill, just because he's a little bit less problematic. But just with both of those in it, it does make me a little bit more interested, rather if it was just like some no names. So I'll probably check that out and see how it goes. So we're starting out on kind of like a more lower note. We haven't really like loved anything yet. I'm afraid to say I'm going to continue that. So My next one from Lionsgate is Betwixt Now and Sunrise, the authentic cut from Francis Ford Coppola. And oh boy. So I'll just say, old Coppola, he's been revisiting a lot of his older works the past couple of years. We've had like a lot of really great revivals of a ton of his older work. Like we just had, like, of course, like the Godfather 4Ks that came out last year. But then we've also had just kind of like some of his like other earlier stuff, like The Outsiders and stuff like that. So this is another one he's been revisiting. This came out not as long ago. This came out, I believe, like a little over a decade ago, originally under the title Twixt. I have never seen that movie, so I just want to say, like, I do not know how this compares to it. This is like a director's cut. This is actually shorter than that. This is like the rare director's cut where they just like remove footage and just like kind of, I guess, restructure some things. I don't know. Haven't had a chance to like figure out the differences. But this runs a scant 79 minutes. But even at that length, it's a little taxing and a little long. And it just makes you wonder, like, where is this guy? Like, how did he fall upon these times where he like was making like The Godfather and The Conversation, and now we have this. I can't understand it. So this movie, it stars Val Kilmer. He plays Hal Baltimore, who is a writer. I'll just say, this is kind of like Coppola trying to make like almost his version of Twin Peaks, if that intrigues you. He comes into this town like on like a book tour where like no one is really like cares about it. Like it's like being held in like a hardware store, and then he meets like this eccentric detective played by Bruce Dern, who is just like, hey, you want to hear about this like crazy murder that happened? And like, hey, like, because he's like a mystery writer, he's like, you'll like this. And so he just kind of like brings him into this investigation, and it kind of leads him down this rabbit hole of like learning about like these like this like large swath of deaths that happened in the town. And it also brings him kind of in league with this ghostly spirit played by Elle Fanning, who's kind of like visits him at night. And this has elements of like vampires in it and everything. It's just like there's a lot of stuff going on within this one, and it's not really cohesive. Like you never really understand like yeah, there's like stuff with like Hal confronting like demons from his past and everything, but like the plot is so convoluted. It's like really poorly made. Like the CGI is like, there's like CGI backgrounds that are just very bad. Just it's like a really grimy, unpleasant looking cinematography. I love Val Kilmer. I like hate that he has like fallen on like bad health in like the recent years, but like he seemed to be sleepwalking through this, which I understand given the material he's been given. But like everyone just seems to like not really care about this, and I understand why, kind of, but just like this, it's just not a really good movie. I was just frankly pretty bored and was just hoping it would like end pretty quickly, which I hate to say that about a Coppola movie, but I was just like, this is just not a good movie. Even like this new cut, which is supposed to save things, I don't think I can't imagine how the hour, like the extra 13 minutes that were in it, like hampered it or helped it. I don't know, but like it is what it is. It's here, and I got to see it, and I love the people in it. It's just not a good movie. There's no really any special features. Like at least on some of his recent restorations, he's had like a new introduction that like tells a little bit about it. There wasn't any of that. It's just like an older documentary that his granddaughter Gia Coppola, who is also a director now, shot like of just like behind the scenes stuff. And you could tell it within the midst of this documentary, it's like 38 minutes long, that he was having some issues with like Elle Fanning, like at one point was like being like the legal department was like taking her off the movie to like put her on set of another movie, and Coppola was like losing his mind. And I was like, this is a little bit more interesting than the movie itself. But anyway, if you're a Coppola completist, or if you've seen the movie and you liked it and you want to see how this new cut compares, I don't think it's terribly expensive. If you think is going to salvage a movie that you previously hated, it's not going to. I don't think, not for me at least. So this is just overall a pretty big disappointment. So betwixt now and Sunrise, I wouldn't recommend it unless you're just super curious.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's like one I feel like I've seen the cover for, but no, I haven't seen it, so it probably doesn't make me want to see it now.
Yeah.
So I want to steer the ship a little bit into something that I did really like, and that is Training Day for on 4K, and of course, like I said, we are giving this away. So there's really nothing like exciting inside the discs. So there will be a digital copy in there. Mine's just not there right now. But yeah, so I feel like a lot of people have seen this, so I'm not gonna like go super in depth, but I will say it has been a while since I've seen this, so it was a really fun revisit. This is definitely probably one of the more grittier movies. Certainly one of the more like villainous roles that Denzel Washington ever played. And very well. It earned him an Oscar. So there you go. But it's kind of interesting how I think with recent events, this movie really is maybe a little bit more impactful. Now than it was. I think this was like 2001. Also the soundtrack is very early 2000s, which is great. I think there was like Papa Roach in there. That's great. There is a slew of cameos, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, Macy Gray. So that's pretty cool. And I also think that this is just an endlessly watchable movie. Like the pacing is breakneck. Of course, the acting is really great. I think the world building is especially amazing. So the 4K itself looks really great. I think it's a marked improvement on what was a somewhat lifeless Blu-ray release. This movie definitely has a really interesting color palette. And for better or worse, it's sort of amplified or highlighted here. I think for the better. And I will say that I did like that it did retain some of that grain look, like film type look. I think the big news here is the new Atmos track, which again I think is a huge upgrade from the Blu-ray, which had a Dolby 5.1 audio. So, oh, do you have the Blu-ray?
I have the old HD DVD actually, just
Wow.
to show off. Like, I like the cover art, but I don't like the old. I believe the Blu-ray also had old lossy audio, so it's good to like have this in lossless audio and like deeply. I just watched this again last year, not knowing there was a 4K coming out, but I'm sure this is going to be a huge improvement.
Yeah. Yeah, the sound with the new Atmos track is great. It's very immersive. It's very like has a nice 3D sort of like feel to it. All the extras are ported over, of course. There's sadly no new extras, but I mean, again, this is a big improvement. It looks better than the Blu-ray. We have a huge step up in audio. And when you have a movie like this, I mean, you really want kind of like the best immersive audio. So Warner Brothers really did a fantastic job. They didn't just plop this out. They really did put some good work into it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to check that one out again. I have to ask, as a known Ethan Hawke skeptic, not really a fan, what did this change anything for you? Or are you still?
I mean, I liked him in this actually. I mean, I think it's a credit to like just how great the screenplay is and that it's directing and no, I'm teasing a little bit, but
You
like
can't give it up for Ethan Hawke. How dare
I'm just he just never connected with me, like his style, like I don't know. But I'm certainly in the minority. Like everybody loves him. He probably has like every acting award ever. So what do I know? But yeah, I think they're great. They're both great in it. I think that there's a really interesting chemistry and dynamic that again, you know, a credit to both actors. They really take what's on the page and like bring it to life. That's like ultimately the goal. So they like more than did that.
Nice. I have to ask a more minor technical question. Do both of the copies you have right now, did they both come in Blu-ray cases?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think so.
Because that's going to drive me crazy. I'm going to have to replace that quickly if that's the case.
Yeah, they both.
I like that. I have to have my 4K in my black cases or whatever the appropriate case is. So good to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I didn't really notice that when I like took it out to watch it, and then right now I was like, wait, this is a Blu-ray case. But yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Whenever you were showing off earlier, I was like, I'll wait to see how the other review copy looked, like your review copy, and they were both Blu-ray, and I was just like, no, I don't like that. Anyway, sounds like a good release, so I'm excited to check it out and replace that case with a black case. um, Sticking with Warner Brothers, going to the TV side with HBO on DVD. This is The Time Traveler's Wife,
Hmm.
which lasted one season before being canceled. And I gotta say, not really that big of a loss, in my opinion. I'm on a roll here at the beginning. So this is 6 disc or 6 episodes over 2 discs, actually. So thankfully not 6 discs worth of episodes. This isn't terrible, but this is an adaptation of the book of the same name. There was previously a movie version with Eric Bana and Rachel McAdams from the early like 2010s. I've seen that a very long time ago. I remember next to nothing about it. I asked my wife Jessica to kind of like fill me in and to try to like I think we're probably going to rewatch it soon, especially after watching this, just to see kind of the differences. So the basic issue with this is like there are some like very creepy elements of this that are kind of like inherent to the DNA, like it's in the source material as well, which I can kind of overlook it because like there's just some issues because this is about a guy who's like cannot control like how he like kind of pops in and out of time, but it's like so he's just kind of showing up at different points in time, and it's like but there's also a romance with so he's played by Theo James. Rose Leslie is like the girl that he like ends up being with, but the first time he meets her, well, the first time we see him meet her is when she's a 6-year-old girl, and like every time he like pops up, he's naked and just kind of like has to like find clothes and stuff. So that's kind of it's like there's also some other elements of like what does and doesn't travel with him through time travel purposes that I won't get into, but it's interesting. It probably would have been more interesting to like if they wouldn't have saved that for a potential second season, but then they got canceled, so they just don't really go into kind of some of the more interesting implications of this. But so yeah, like every time he has to like find clothes, so he like pops up in this field with like this young girl, and like it's not like he's like hitting on this young girl, but like there's like kind of like that seed of like a friendship or kinship started that kind of like he pops in and out of her life as she's like getting older, like, and he's like different versions of himself. And it just kind of like until like they get older and it might be more appropriate for a relationship. So the way this is framed like is like they are like in like an older version of their lives, kind of like kind of reflecting back, but kind of not. It's kind of complicated, but this is a romance, and like I said, I can kind of forgive some of the creepier elements of like the age difference stuff, because like they do eventually get on more even footing. But where this story seems like it wants to deal with like a lot of like the elements of like potential loss and romance and everything, of just like being kind of like unable to control your life and like bodily autonomy and everything. That's all well and good, but the execution is kind of a little shaky, and it's especially so because the leads don't really have great chemistry, unfortunately, which is kind of like key to making you want to forgive some of the more like elements. Like if they were like, if it was more like, oh, like they are like ooh, like getting you hot under the collar, like their chemistry, you could be like, okay, we'll kind of forget kind of like the weirdness over here because they're so like sexy over here. But it never really gets to that. Like there's not really like that heat between them that you kind of need to make the story work. I actually found some of the supporting characters a little bit more interesting parts of the story, like Desmond Borges, who I believe who I'm a big fan of from like shows like You're the Worst. He's like a best friend character here who doesn't really get enough to do, but what he is kind of like, some of the stuff he is able to do, I like was responding to some of that more than some of the actual like main characters. Um, Overall, there's some interesting elements, but overall, it's kind of a little bit of a mess. I wish it had been more focused, more like passionate, more like I wish there had just been more to it to really make this show work. So I think if you're a fan of the story, I think as if my wife is a litmus test, she likes the movie more. So this didn't really clear up any of the issues she had with like the movie. So if you're a fan of these Rose Leslie, she was on Game of Thrones, so she has her fans. I know Theo James, I know he has like a certain appeal to like an audience. So if you're a fan of them, check it out. Probably check it out on HBO Max first, see if you want to own this. That is the one thing I do like about this release, is like we've talked about a lot over the past year. HBO Max is removing a lot of their shows. You never know what's gonna like just be yanked and never to be seen again. This seems like what like a candidate for one that would probably be like yanked off the service. It lasted one season, doesn't have a huge fan base, but if you don't want to lose it, it's on DVD. I wish it was on Blu-ray if we're gonna make the effort, but it's not. It's on DVD, but it's on physical media. It has a few featurettes, nothing too in depth, just your normal like 5 to 6 minute HBO featurettes, if that. But it's fine. It's just like a little bit disappointing, especially if you're a fan of the source material. It just like their chemistry never really sells it. So continuing my series of disappointments, unfortunately, Time Traveler's Wife.
Yeah, well, I hope you have a couple good ones in there.
I do. I'm ramping up. Don't worry.
So I have another one that I really like, and this is also on 4K from Paramount, and that is Devotion on 4K. And here's the back. And here's the inside. And yeah, so this is a movie that I had heard a lot about. I kind of heard that it was kind of like strange that this wasn't nominated for, I think, anything.
Correct. Yeah.
Not even like any technical awards, which I think is crazy. But yeah, so Jonathan Major plays Jesse Brown, an African American naval pilot, and his wingman, Tom Hudner, and just the strong kind of bond that they form. Like, they definitely don't start out as enemies, but they don't really see each other's sort of points of view when it comes to like their job, their duty. Yeah, this is incredibly well directed. It's a harrowing true life story, and I think it just really keeps you engaged throughout. I This is definitely like the opposite of what I think I would probably have gravitated towards, but I really enjoyed it. I found it it's not that it's completely not a war movie, because it is, but I think like they do a really nice job of sort of balancing the action and the combat with a really compelling character story. Like, of course, it's more focused on Jesse, which is great, but I think also like how like his wingman, his literal wingman, kind of like helps him, and they both help each other. And holy crap, it is so sad at the end. Like it really is just gutting. So the picture looks great. Whenever you get a newer film on 4K, you're always going to get like exceptionally clean, crisp, clear picture, and this certainly looks great. The special effects are used really well, and they really pop. We do get a couple nice featurettes. Would have loved a commentary track, but there's at least a little something extra on here. The big thing is this doesn't have an Atmos track, which I saw some people online kind of complaining about, but regardless, I think it sounds really great. It does have a really nice, I believe it's a 5.1 Dolby digital sound. It's very, full bodied. It's very immersive. It definitely, packs a bigger punch than I thought. Again, an Atmos track would have been nice, but still, don't let that deter you. It still sounds really great. Again, looks great. Great movie. Just great all around.
Yeah, that's one I'm excited to check out. I think audiences in the Academy had room for only one high flying adventure this past year, and that was Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
But I love Jonathan Majors. I love Glenn Powell, who is also in Top Gun Maverick. So I'm interested to see them in this movie for sure. And with your recommendation, I'm even more excited. So glad to hear it's a good one. Okay, I am getting to a movie I actually liked. It's not going to be a completely negative episode from me. So this is a 2-pack from Ronin Flicks. These are two Jet Li movies. There's Fist of Legend and Tai Chi Master. So I'll go through these real quick. This is just like a bigger slipcase. So you have two separate discs or two separate releases in here. I will just start. For some reason they like advertise Fist of Legend like more prominently, even though it's like it comes after this one, but I'll just go in their order. It doesn't matter. Fist of Legend, this is kind of basically a remake of Bruce Lee's Fist of Fury. So here is the disc art. So this is kind of like the like an early struggle of like Japanese versus Chinese forces. Like I believe Jet Li plays like a young Chinese student who is studying abroad in Japan at first, and he's kind of like being hassled and by like the Japanese, and like has to go back, and he like falls in love with a Japanese woman, and it kind of like causes issues. Like his master dies, and there's kind of like a power vacuum that he's like trying to figure out if he wants to fill that vacuum, and there's also other people who might be vying for it that he's friends with. So it's basically like this tale of like there's like elements of forbidden love, elements of like like Chinese versus Japanese conflict, and then like the power vacuum that is left whenever a ruler of like a gang kind of like a house dies, and like how that kind of impacts the character. Overall, I think this is a really interesting movie. I think it was probably, despite an element I liked more for the other movie, I think this is probably the more consistent of the two movies, so maybe why they advertise this a little bit more prominently. There's some really good action in this. The romance is decent. Jet Li does a really good job. Overall, I was pretty entertained throughout. And both of these movies were released like a little bit over a decade ago, but they had been out of print. I think they were through like the Dragon Dynasty sub label, like that like Miramax was working with. I don't think the transfers are fundamentally different from what those were at the time, from what I can tell based on like other past reviews. It seems like that. These transfers are not great. They're passable. These definitely could use a new scan, but with a lot of these, like especially like these old like martial arts movies, a lot of the companies that holds the rights to them don't want to pay to like remaster them. So you kind of just have to take what you can get. It doesn't look terrible, but it could look better. The sound, there's like I believe there's Cantonese and Mandarin audio for both, along with an English dub. Also, does not sound the best, but it's not terrible. There's just like some like frequency, like fidelity issues, and kind of like just things that don't always sound the best. But overall, it's listenable. It's just not the best. This particular release, it comes with deleted scenes, a 36-minute interview with the director, and then 3 other interviews with various like historians and people who worked on it that range from about 23 to 30 minutes. So there's like over like 2 hours of interviews on this, surprisingly. So there's a good number of interviews. So yeah, overall fairly good. And then so Tai Chi Master, while it might not be like as strong narratively as Fist of Legend, it has the added presence of my dear Michelle Yeoh, who I just talked about a couple of weeks ago with Magnificent Warrior, which I liked a lot better than this, but this is still fine. This basically boils down to the plot of like Jet Li and like one of his school age friends. They are like the best of friends, and they kind of end up on the like opposite sides of like a conflict where like Jet Li is kind of like fighting for the underdog, where his friend is kind of like mixed up with like kind of this warlord and is like helping with like basically like suppressing the people. And so it's like old friends meeting on the battlefield type situation. But then you also have Michelle Yeoh showing up in like a pretty like the highlight of the movie in my opinion. So it just kind of like follows that natural progression of like conflict. Overall, it's fine. It's not like the best martial arts movie I've ever seen, but there's some really great fighting. I was entertained overall. It's not a bad movie by any means. And all the stuff I said about the AV quality of the other one applies to this one. It's not the best, could be better, but it's fine. This has a 20-minute interview with one of the lead performers, none of the people I just mentioned, but one of the Chin Soo Ho talks about that. There's also a couple other featurettes showing the shooting locations and different discussions about this movie from a historical perspective. So both of these movies, I believe, have been also issued separately, but if you just want to get them, and it's not the best slipcase, but if you do like a slipcase, like you can have these together and just kind of like have just a nice, solid little collection here. I think they're both like interesting. I like Jet Li, so I'm glad to like revisit these because I missed the out of print Dragon Dynasty Blu-ray, so it's good to have these again. So overall, recommend these if you're a Jet Li fan or martial arts fan. It's pretty solid releases, and it's probably the best we're going to get for these for a while.
Nice. Yeah, that definitely looks interesting. That's another one that wasn't really on my radar, but should definitely check it out. So my next one kind of relates to some of the stuff we've been talking about recently, which is Kino's been putting out a lot of Truffaut lately, and I am doing his The Bride Wore Black.
Awesome.
And yeah, so this does have alternate slipcover.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so this was really cool. This certainly, like, this and The Blood Splattered Bride were like huge inspirations for Kill Bill. This is a bride whose groom is killed and she's taking her revenge. So that sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
So this is definitely the director's direct homage to Hitchcock. Famously, Truffaut did a series of interviews with Hitchcock, detailing his like entire career up until that point. And I could tell within the first couple minutes that this was like, before, without even kind of reading that ahead of time, like the way it sort of flows, the way it's edited, how it's shot, it's very much like his sort of take on Vertigo, which I think is interesting. He also, this is the second and last time he used Bernard Herrmann as a composer, and Herrmann, of course, worked on a bunch of Hitchcock films. Famously, he did the score for Psycho and Vertigo, among others. So yeah, this is a very dreamlike movie. I thought that it has a really engaging mystery. They don't like kind of let you know right away that it's like a revenge film. They sort of just like slowly get you to that point. Like, she's a very mysterious woman and she's very glamorous and she's like killing these men and you don't really know why, and then you slowly start to understand her motivations. So yeah, it's a pretty fascinating movie. I will say, if I had like a complaint, it would be that the pacing um has a lot of problems. There's definitely some things that feel a little filler to me, and it's not as sort of consistent and concise as it maybe could have been, but I feel like overall I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of like dark humor, which I really like, and that was also something that Hitchcock liked to put into his films. So yeah, it was kind of fun seeing like Truffaut actually sort of like trying to do like his own kind of Hitchcock film. As far as I know, this isn't a brand new master, but it looks great. Again, this is an older film from 1968. And a lot of Kino stuff, it looks fantastic. Certainly, they have a lot of really nice outdoor scenes that really pop. Like, colors are really like nicely done. There are, again, maybe a little bit of artifacts going on, little scratches, but honestly, like nothing that ever, I think, detracted from the movie. I think it overall just looks really good. It's a very visually stunning movie at times, so I'm kind of glad that it really has a nice sort of what looks like a nice upgrade. So yeah, and it's just nice to kind of have it. There is a commentary track. So we do have some nice supplemental material. I think like commentary tracks are kind of my favorite anyways. So if you kind of want more information about Truffaut, about his influences, of course, his work with Hitchcock on that famous series of interviews, like, this is a really great commentary that kind of dives into all that stuff. So really good film, really interesting, especially if you are a big fan of like Kill Bill and you kind of want to see what influenced that. You'll definitely want to check this out.
Oh yeah. As you know, I've been on a Truffaut kick, so I actually haven't seen this one yet, so I'm definitely going to check this out. It's almost seems like the most promising for me yet. So I've already liked the two that I've talked about recently, but I'm very excited to check this one out. Keeping on the Kino Classics train, I'm going with Sorrowful Jones, the next collaboration from Bob Hope and Lucille Ball. I talked about Fancy Pants probably about a month ago, which was the first collaboration I talked about from them. I don't know where this fell in their collaborations. They collaborated several times with one another. I just have to say, I like this a lot more than Fancy Pants. Fancy Pants was fine. I enjoyed it for what it was, but I like this one even more. So this is actually a remake of a Shirley Temple movie called Little Miss Marker, which is actually coming out in March. So I'll probably be watching that one soon as well. So I didn't know I was going to be watching this version of the story like so close together, but that's just how the calendar fell. They're just releasing both versions, which is cool. So Sorrowful Jones, it's the story. Bob Hope plays a bookie who takes on a bet from like this hapless man who cannot really afford to like pay the mark that like the deposit that it puts down on the bet. So he leaves his young daughter as collateral to this bookie. Yeah, it's wild. And then after the race happens, the father just kind of like never comes back, and so it's just like Bob Hope is left with this young girl, and he needs her father to come back and claim her and like settle their debts and all that stuff. But he's in such a bad way. It's like, is he ever going to come back? That type of thing. And then Lucille Ball just plays like kind of she's not given the material that I wish she was given. She kind of plays more of a straight woman who just like makes sure that Sorrowful Jones, the Bob Hope character, that's his name, that he gives this young girl, the care that she deserves, and like make sure she's taken care of, and not just like he's just like some hapless dude taking care of this young girl. It's like all pretty like mostly sweet natured. It's just like this young girl's very precocious. She's very cute. She says a lot of very like humorous things, and like kind of like sets Bob Hope on like, oh, like just kind of like responding like, oh, can you believe she just said this? Like just like all their normal witty retorts, just normal stuff you would expect from Bob Hope. But then there's also some like darker elements that I was not expecting, that I will not spoil, but like just people like either dying or getting hurt that I was like, whoa, okay, that was not expecting that. But so some of those tonal inconsistencies I was just kind of like, huh, okay. But like overall it kept more of like a lighthearted, like heartfelt tone. This is more so like the story of a like kind of like a conniving man, like a opportunistic man, learning not to be selfish, learning how to take care of others, learning to just look beyond himself to others in his life. So there's like him kind of becoming a father figure to this girl, kind of becoming a romantic interest to the Lucille Ball character, who he like was friends with but had kind of like fallen out of connection with. Overall, it's a very sweet movie. I'm not the biggest Bob Hope fan, like I said when I talked about him previously, so I won't go over that again. But I like this movie all the same. It was a nice, like humorous time. It's fine. As far as the presentation, this comes from a new 2K master. There's still a little bit of like little flicker here and there, but overall it's very solid. I didn't see any like blatant instances of like damage. There might have been little like specks of damage here and there, but overall it's been cleaned up really nicely. And there are no special features besides just trailers, which I don't really consider like a special feature, but there are trailers here. There's no commentary track, any of that. It's just like a classic film in like a nice presentation. So if you're a fan of Lucille Ball like I am, or Bob Hope, or you just like heartfelt stories, I think it's pretty solid. Like I said, you'll be getting the original version in a few weeks from Kino as well, with Shirley Temple. So it might be even cuter. Who knows? But this girl is very cute. So overall, it's a nice, pleasant watch.
Nice. So my next one is not nice or pleasant. So it is another film from the Severin box set, Violent Streets, the Umberto Lenzi and Tomas Milan collaboration. And this is Freehand for a Tough Cop. It's also been known as just Tough Cop. So, and as you can see, there are a nice amount of special features. No cards or anything on this, just a disc. And yeah, so this is another one that I really liked. I'm really enjoying this box set so far. So let me tell me if this sounds familiar. Okay. The setup is a smart ass con is broken out of jail by a detective, and they team up to help solve a crime.
Sounds like potentially 48 hours.
Yeah, so exactly. But this actually came out like almost a decade before 48 hours, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the, I feel like, definition of what people want out of this box set. It's a bullets flying crime spree, like a little bit gory, has a lot of great dark humor, has plenty of Euro sleaze. There is a nice kind of humorous sort of dynamic between this like cop, and he again is forced to work with these criminals. And I don't know if you can see this, but Tomas has a terrible wig and guy liner, and it's kind of great.
Yeah.
And there's just so what's interesting about these Polizia films, I think they're called, is there's a lot happening almost like subplot wise that really doesn't necessarily like fully connect with what's like the main sort of like thread. Like for example, outside of like this kidnapping plot, there is a series of violent attacks with people that have like a brick inside a tissue box. And this is like something that's kind of spread throughout the film as well. So you have these like weird asides that don't necessarily like connect with all the other plot elements, but they're just kind of weird. And it's maybe jarring if you're not used to like weird sort of tangents that some kind of sleazy Euro movies kind of take you on. But it's really good. I mean, I think this and Almost Human might be my favorite from this box set so far. We do have as I said, a slew of nice extras, which I'm really appreciative of. And this movie looks really good too. I mean, again, so this is from 76 and looks really great. Again, is it exactly 100% clean and perfect? No. Does it look great for its age and it probably languishing in some basement forever? Yeah, it looks fantastic. I don't know how widely available this was in the US prior to this, but it is nice that it's part of this box set. And like I said, I'm really kind of enjoying all of these movies so far.
Yeah, I mean, I told you last week that what you were talking about pretty much like intrigued me and like probably convinced me to check out the box set, and now you're just adding on to it. So this one sounds pretty solid, so I'm looking forward to checking that one out. Keeping with Kino being a little more recent, this is from the year 2000, and this is The Crimson Rivers, which is a French movie starring Jean Reno and Vincent Cassel. This is, I believe, the director of La Haine from, which I believe is in the Criterion Collection. Matt, nope, I'm not gonna try the director's name because I don't want Andre, our great producer, to put in a drop of me struggling. So no, this actually has some reversible cover art. If I can get it here. So looks intense. So basically how I could most succinctly describe this movie is kind of like a French version of Seven, but not quite. It's just kind of that dynamic of like two officers or two forces, I say. I'm not sure both of them are actually officers. I know Jean Reno plays a French detective who comes in and whenever he learns about a bunch of murders happening in this town. And then Vincent Cassel, he plays like kind of like another outside entity who's, I believe, is also a detective. Like I said, I can't remember. Who like they kind of had to team up. Like they have like kind of conflicting styles, but just not like terribly conflicting. And so it's basically them trying to hunt down this serial killer and just kind of all the twists and turns that go into that. Overall, this is mostly a very good movie. The ending is kind of whack and like kind of like takes it down a notch because you're just it's so solid for so much of the movie. You just have like some really great detective work. I love the conversations between the two leads. There's some like shocking like imagery and everything. Like it's just like it's a really solid just like detective drama. And then you get to the end and none of like the resolution really seems to make sense. Like there's like I won't kind of like obviously reveal the end, but just like stuff with like different like people like the scenarios that had to like take place in order for like all of this what the movie purports happens to actually happen is just like why did this thing happen, why was this person living here, what is this like, how does like why is all this. And I think I've even read that even some like even like Vincent Cassel has even said like I don't know why, like I don't understand the ending either, it's just like how it is. So and then there's also some really rocky early like CGI like employed near the end, which I was just like, okay, that kind of takes me out of like the more realistic tone of just like this janky CGI that's happening in the background. So it doesn't completely ruin the movie. It's still very nice, atmospheric, engaging time with two really great French actors. But like it was going so well, and then it just kind of like, did not stick the landing. So that's unfortunate. Overall, I still think if you're a fan of French cinema or these two performers, or just like kind of like a detective serial killer drama, it's very entertaining. It's just like be prepared that you could be a little bit disappointed. This Blu-ray, it does not seem to come from a new scan, but what we have here, it looks really nice and solid. I didn't see a lot of in the way of like wear and tear or like any compression artifacts or anything. It's just a really solid transfer, even if it might be a little bit older. This is from Gamon. All right, Andre, just put it in there. Who they're a prominent French distribution company, so I'm sure they did their own restoration at some point in their like past decade, most likely. It looks pretty great. There's audio commentary on here from the director and the two stars, which is nice, and then like an assortment of different like special features, which they do attempt to kind of like explain the ending a little bit, but it's still not completely satisfying in my opinion. So overall, solid release. Like the Blu-ray is good. The movie is fairly solid until the end. Overall, worth a watch, even if it's not like the best it could be.
Yeah, I looks interesting. So I saved my I feel like I saved the best for last. And this one was one I was really excited about. And that is the 4K of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Nice.
And I don't know if you can see this, but like it's kind of like they make the chainsaw a little extra shiny, which is
Nice.
neat. So this is the back of the J card. As you can see, all of the features have been ported over to an extra Blu-ray. There's just a dedicated 4K disc. I'll show you what's going on inside. So the back's just plain, but here's the and so we get the 2 discs. We get a poster, which is 2-sided. So I'm going to try to do this without ripping it. So you have some new art,
Oh,
which is really cool, and then you have, of course, the original poster. And there is the dinner scene on the inside. I'm not gonna pop these discs out, but I mean, like, you get the gist of what's in there. So yeah, I am. This is another movie that like has been talked about so much, so I'm probably gonna just go through my thoughts on it really quick. It is one of those maybe considered the best 70s horror films, exploitation films. It's gritty, it's lean, it's mean. Leatherface is iconic. He's almost a mythic kind of figure at this point, but it all started with this very inexpensive, funded by the mafia film. Um, which they go into in some of the documentaries and stuff. It's one of these films that it's hard to really quantify how it changed horror movies. And yeah, it's amazing. So I wanted to kind of break down like what's going on with this disc and if it's worth the upgrade from the 40th anniversary Blu-ray. Long and the short of it, yes, it's very much worth upgrading. Overall, blacks are deeper, grain isn't too heavy, yet thankfully, like, it's not totally scrubbed. um I think this is indicative of this never feels too overworked. The HDR really does help, I think, inject some new life into this movie. I don't think it's perfect by any means. The HDR does tend to overpower things at times, like some whites tend to be a little bit intense. But I do think that overall this looks probably the best it ever has. So audio wise, purists will be happy to know that we do have a 2.0 track that was, I believe, also available on the 40th anniversary. The big news is we get an Atmos track, and really both tracks are nicely mixed. Again, I think it offers a really nice immersive experience. This is a film that is very unsettling with its sound design. So you kind of really want something that like really pops. Interestingly enough, this does not port over the DTS HD 5.1 track from the 40th anniversary. So if you're kind of curious about that, that for some reason is not on there. But the tracks that you do get are perfect. Like, they're really good. Um this is kind of one of those rare movies where even if you have sort of like a really grungy, grimy print, it still, I feel like, looks it. I don't know. It's funny because I was reading online how you don't necessarily want this movie to look super pristine because it is kind of a grindhouse you know, very gritty, dirty kind of movie. But I think that, you know, in the restoration, they do a kind of a nice job of finding a middle ground in that and making it look nice, but kind of retaining some of that like grit and um like, you know, that authentic kind of feel that Hooper was going for. And I mean, again, as you can see, you know, this has a ton of features. There's a steelbook edition, and there's just, if you're not into steelbooks, they also have a regular 4K edition. I can link both of those in the description. But yeah, this is definitely the movie to own if you're a horror fan. Like, this is bar none, like, this is it. This is the release to own. Like, this probably already kind of makes my short list of like best releases of this year so far.
Yeah, that's one I'm super excited about. I shamefully still only have the DVD version, so this will be a huge upgrade for me. Even though, like you said, it's still like it's a grimy movie, so it's not gonna like. I want it to be like I don't want it to have like the unintended like griminess to it, like some of the old like crushed black levels and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to upgrade to a 4K, and I'm glad that it finally happened. I've been waiting for it, so I'm glad it's finally here. It'll be hard. I won't be able to top that. I'll just say my last title is not a horror classic or anything. It's just a very solid new drama. It was a submission from Columbia for Best International Feature. It did not get nominated, but it's still worth a watch. I would say this is Memories of My Father from the Cohen Media Collection. Like I said, this is from Columbia, and so this is based on a true story. This is about it's a young boy, well, a man's reflection of his life as a young boy and like his memories of his father. His father was a teacher in Columbia, like a professor who also spoke out about very important like political issues, like socio-political issues and like medical issues at the time that were not very popular in the country. Like the government was actively trying to suppress a lot of these ideas that he would have. Like he would like make speeches on the radio or like put out papers, all this type of stuff, which did make their family like vulnerable to like surveillance or like intimidation, all that type of stuff. But what you really just learn through this, a lot of a lot of these like political moments and stuff, like his father doing things like that are bucking against authority and pushing the country forward and trying to bring these issues to light, which is it's really entertaining and like interesting on its own. But then you also have him as a father with his family. They have a very large family. There's like 5 or 6 girls and one boy, I believe. So the main boy. So a very big family. There's always a lot going on with it, like the boy's sisters, and like just this man, the father, just like trying to like take care of his family while also trying to do the right thing, and just like kind of that push and pull of like doing what is right and doing what is comfortable, pretty much. I think this works very well as a movie. I was very like entertained. This does like kind of fit into the category that I find myself is like I'm catching up with a lot of the Oscar nominated movies right now, and there are just way too many movies that are over 2 hours long. It's just driving me crazy. It's just like every movie I turn on are like 2 hours and 15, 2 hours 30, 2 hours and 45. I was like, I do not have this amount of time in the day for these long ass movies. But if they justify them, it's fine. I think this could have been a little under 2 hours. As it is, I believe it's 2 hours and 16 minutes. So for this type of like personal drama, it could have been like a tight hour 55. Then fine. It did kind of start to get a little bit slow near the end, a little tedious. It never lost my interest completely, but I was just like, okay, some of this could be like trimmed down after you hit the 2 hour mark. But overall, it's an impactful movie. I did really like it. Some really great performances. The cinematography is nice. It's just a really great personal tale that I really responded to. I think it's a really great movie. It looks really nice. This Blu-ray, like the audiovisual presentation is great. The only thing that I don't really like, it doesn't really bother me because I would always watch this with English subtitles. But the thing that bothers me a lot with Cohen is their subtitles are usually not optional, so they're forced burned in subtitles for this. So there's like, if you can speak Spanish, then you still have to watch it with English subtitles, which is kind of a bummer. Like I said, not for me, but just for anyone out there. I love the option to turn the subtitles off if you don't want them. So that's the only biggish issue I have with it. There's some pretty good bonus features. There's a 30-ish minute conversation with a film historian with the director and lead actor. There's also a couple other making up featurettes along with it that are like kind of round out the package. So overall, solid package from Cohen. It's a good international feature from Colombia. So yeah, recommend Memories of My Father if it sounds interesting to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I always love Cohen, what they put out, so that sounds pretty interesting. So I think that will do it for this episode, but I wanted to just say again that we do have a really awesome giveaway thanks to Warner Brothers. We are giving away not just the digital code, but this entire 4K set. So that's pretty awesome. All you need to do to be entered to win is comment on the video below and let us know what title we talked about that you are most excited for, and you'll be entered to win. But also, please note, please be in the US, because otherwise you will not be eligible. But that's why I like to do digital codes that are friendly to everywhere. But with this case, it's just in the US. So I hope good luck to whoever wins this. And I'll also do the obligatory like, subscribe. Again, commenting will get a chance to win this bad boy. And as always, thanks for hanging out with us.